this video, I'm gonna do two things. One is I'm just gonna tell you all the pros and cons right off the bat. So all you people that have got your fingers ready to be like, the video starts at... This part's for you. Whenever this time is, that's when the video starts. You can type that in the comments. After all of this, there's gonna be more context. I'm gonna break down why I like it so much and why it works for my workflow and why none of the offerings from Sony, from Panasonic, from Nikon have tempted me at all from leaving this. Oh, by the way, this is gonna be a review of the EOS R and why it's my favorite camera ever, despite all the things it's missing, which are a lot. Let's just power through some of these features. Super comfortable grip, it's got a flip out screen, lenses are gray, control ring, controversial touch bar, lack of Ibis, single card slots, lack of full frame 4K, super high bitrate, good high quality 1080p. I don't really think it's the best. It does not have a joystick, move your thumb around. Canon's color is my favorite log profile. Dual pixel autofocus, touch screen interface, great photo camera. There's almost nothing that you wouldn't be able to do with this camera. Now, for the rest of you that have some amount of patience and that actually think context and workflows and how you use a camera and what your needs are from a camera is important, this part's for you. If you don't know who I am, if you haven't seen my work, I've kind of built a career creating these like high-end, high-quality Instagram stories that I shoot on cameras vertically, edit them in Final Cut as if I was creating a little vlog or commercial or whatever, and I post them on my Instagram stories. In these stories, I've used a 5D Mark III, 5D Mark IV, 1DX Mark II, a C100, a C200, an M5, an M50, G1X Mark II, GH4, GH5, FS700, A7 III, iPhones, GoPros, 360 cameras, you name it. I've used a ton of cameras, but never have I had more questions and comments about the quality of my videos than since switching to the EOS R. Take that for what you will, but I think it's fair to say that image trumps specs. All right, well, video's off to a great start. Okay. Today's video is going to be a bit different than a lot of videos for one main reason. I mean, essentially it's going to be the same as normal. It's just that I'm not going to be alone this. And by not alone, I actually don't mean a collaboration or anything. I just mean someone's going to be watching me. Okay, cool. No. Real quick, let me introduce you to 40% of the team. We got some more over here. This is Ink Zero? Tier Zero. Tier Zero, Ink Zero. The guys from Tier Zero. They're here making a video of me making a video of this right here. Do I have any mirrors around right now? Of this. Wow. It's worse than ever. The EOS R, me and the EOS R, and how I ended up with this camera, and oh man, it's better over here. And why I like it so much. I kind of want to take you through the history of me with cameras and just why. Why? There are a lot of you watching that are gonna write this video off right away. And well, there's probably nothing I can say to change your mind because I actually have done a fair amount of work with and for Canon. That alone might be reason for you not to trust me. And if that's the case, that's fine. There are plenty of other videos on the internet. For those of you that are maybe not as pessimistic or skeptical or whatever, I have a ton of experience with this camera in all sorts of setups. And I'd love to share my experience with you. And hopefully I can help you to make a more informed decision when you're going out and buying a camera or not buying a camera. I think the best way to describe the EOS R is it is a jack of all trades and a master of none.
It's got a flip out screen, which is, I think, an unbelievably important feature in a camera for two reasons. One is I film myself a lot, so obviously it's good to see yourself. But two, composition is up there with the most important things in photography, in filmmaking. It's about where you draw your eye, and if you're sticking your camera in an awkward angle, holding it above your head, getting it down low, and just kinda guessing a little bit at the composition, your photo, your video, it's not gonna be as good as it could have been. In the photo department, it's basically a 5D Mark IV, essentially the same sensor, the lenses are great, you know? It's a great photo camera. There's almost nothing to complain about here. It has the most comfortable grip of any camera I've ever used, which is important for me when I'm ripping around town on a one wheel, hoping to not drop it. But in general, it also just makes usability that much better. The RF lenses, they've got this wonderful control ring. I have it set to ISO, which is great because then I have shutter speed, aperture, ISO, whole exposure triangle covered. Is the ever controversial touch bar. You can have it set up in all sorts of ways. You can have something for a left tap, a right tap, a slide. You can lock it, so you have to hold it to unlock it. Most of that is not useful. I have it set up so that it's just my Kelvin slider. I'm always shooting in Kelvin white balance, and now by just sliding across this, I can very easily adjust my white balance as needed. And you can go faster, you can go slow. You hold it, it fits secure, you've got your shutter, your aperture, your ISO, and your white balance, all without taking your hands off the camera. It just means you work faster. This camera can do basically anything at a average or above average level. I don't really think it's the best camera for any one particular thing, but it's very good at almost everything. I know some of you are probably getting ready to type like,
well, it's not very good at shooting slow motion.
You're right, but it can do it. I use the 720, 120 frames a second pretty regularly, and I'm fine with it. The quality isn't the best it could be, but it does have it, and if you need it, it's there. I also liken slow motion footage to drone footage. It has an element of wow factor to it, and so viewers naturally forgive the quality loss a little bit more than they would if it was just regular footage. Because you're like, whoa, those bubbles, they're going so slow, or whatever, or how'd you get that camera in the sky? Same idea. The lack of full frame 4K in this camera. This is an interesting one because most other competitors are offering you full frame 4K. I shoot almost everything I do, both personally and professionally, in 1080p. And you might be thinking,
but then you can't stabilize or crop.
I do it. I've stabilized to like 200 and something % of 1080p shots because a better shot is a better shot. Less resolution is worth it if it means better composition. And this camera happens to do very nice, good, high quality 1080p. The only time I find myself switching this into 4K is actually when I don't have a long enough lens and I know I'm gonna want to crop in post. So the fact that it actually has that 1.7-ish crop factor in 4K is kind of great for me because I'm gonna crop it anyways, and it just gives me that little bit extra reach anyways. The other thing about the 4K is that you can have it in insanely high bit rates. I think it's 480 megabits a second, and that's wonderful. It's a great place to start your grades from. However, I get it. 4K is the future. Heck, it's the present. I wish it had the options for both full frame and cropped 4K. Single card slots. I wish it had two. It's not a big deal for me. However, back when I was shooting weddings, I always dual recorded everything. And if I was still shooting weddings, that's something I would really miss on this camera. The other thing that the internet is pretty upset about is the lack of Ibis, or in-body image stabilization, which is basically the sensor's ability to move around to adjust for your little imperfections. I wish it had Ibis. Canon has publicly stated Ibis is coming to future cameras, and it is going to work in tandem with the lens stabilization. And for me, it's just not a deal breaker that it's not in here, but I do wish it had it. Color science is something that Canon is very well known for, and I'm on board. I love Canon's colors, and I think C-Log in particular is my favorite log profile to work with. It also has a view assist mode internally, so when you're shooting video in C-Log, it doesn't look gray and washed out and flat. You can judge your exposure, you can judge your white balance, but then in post you get that wonderfully nice flat image to work with. Dual pixel autofocus. It works great in photos, it works great in videos. I really like the system. The camera does not have an autofocus joystick like you'd find on a 5D Mark III or 5D Mark IV. However, it does have a feature that when your eye is at the viewfinder, you can just move your thumb around on the display. It works great. Takes a bit of getting used to. Once you're used to it, no complaints. And the entire touchscreen interface just works wonderfully. You can just touch on the thing you want it to focus on and it's gonna focus great. You can go through all the menus with your touchscreen. It's just a very nice, very user-friendly interface.
From left to right, here it is.
For the most part.
Honestly, I can't believe I thought you would enjoy watching this. This is 25 minutes of me breaking down basically every camera that I have and still own to this date, and why it worked and didn't work for my workflow, and how the EOS R is really a marriage between all of those things. Here's the gist of it. I got into video at the beginning of the DSLR revolution. So I started with the 5D Mark II and with the 7D and then with the T2i, and I started building my career from there until eventually I was shooting with a 5D Mark III and a C100. I fell in love with the photos from a full frame photography camera and fast primes. But as I started making Instagram stories and YouTube videos, I started needing a camera where I could have reliable autofocus and see myself filming, which is where the M5 and the M50 came in. However, when I was in Ireland, what I realized was I brought my M50 just to shoot YouTube stuff with. I brought a GH5 and a speed booster in order to get slow motion, shallow depth of field stuff. And in order to get photos, I also needed to pack a 5D Mark III. And it was at that point I realized I need to find one camera that can replace these three. What I didn't really expect though was just how well the EOS R would cut and match with my C100 and C200s when shooting in C-Log. So this camera has really become a marriage of the vloggy aspects of my smaller mirrorless cameras, and it replaced my full frame photo cameras, but it's also done a really good job supplementing and becoming a B and C cam to my cinema workflow.
And that's why I think it's such a jack of all trades. It's more than good enough. You could shoot entire weddings on this, photo or video. You could shoot commercials. You can vlog with it. You can shoot Instagram stories with it. There's almost nothing that you wouldn't be able to do with this camera.
That's a wrap.
If you bought a camera made in the last like 6-7 years and you can't take good photos or you can't make good videos, I'm sorry to tell you, it's your fault. It has nothing to do with your camera. You're just not great. You're just not, whatever, you're not where you want to be yet. So when we talk about cameras, I try and keep it relatively lighthearted because in the end, they are just tools. They are not keys that unlock some sort of creative part of your brain, and they certainly are not more interesting than the videos or the photos that you're going to take with them. So I do not care what camera you shoot on. I'm not telling you to buy this. I'm not trying to tell you to buy another thing. I really only care about the work that you're making. And is it any good? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I've never seen it. Send me a message.